I love coffee. I think it's one of the best drinks that you can have every single day to lower the risk of disease, to improve your heart health, even improve your brain health as well. It is packed full of polyphenols that are anti-inflammatory and they heal the body. But if you are sensitive to caffeine or you simply don't like the taste of coffee, there are so many other drinks that you can have on the daily or experiment with, even if you're a caffeine drinker like myself, that can heal the body, reduce inflammation, are packed full of polyphenols. I'm going to go through 5 of my favorite drinks that aren't coffee. First off, raw cacao, a chocolate brew. This is 100% raw chocolate. It is absolutely delicious. It is bitter. It is a fantastic source of polyphenols from the cacao beans. Flavonols like epicactin give some of those benefits, similar to what we see in coffee and also things like green tea, particularly in matcha. There is a lot of evidence around heart health and a lowered risk of heart disease, and also potentially a small drop in blood pressure as well. And again, on the brain function side of things, there has been evidence to show that there is better executive function, better verbal fluency, and better memory as well. It is a wonderful ingredient that we should definitely get more of in our diets. You can get it in so many different ways, not just consuming good quality, high, 75% at least chocolate, but also in drinks as well. So things that you want to be looking out for are no added ingredients. You just want 100% chocolate. It should taste bitter. You want at least a cocoa content of over 75%, but I think for a drink, you want it to be 100%, and you want it to be raw. And if they state this on the packaging, you want it to be undutched, i.e. there is no alkali process that actually strips away a lot of the polyphenols that you find in cacao beans as well. So those are the main things that you want to be looking for. There should not be any added sugars. And the recipe that I have for you guys is a simple raw cacao powder with a bit of cinnamon, some maple syrup, hot water, and you can use a milk of choice. I tend to go for coconut milk, but sometimes I simply have it just with the hot water itself. And it's as simple as this, just adding about a tablespoon of raw cacao and then adding different flavors to it. So you can really get experimental here. The brand of raw cacao that I use has come from a single origin. They're called Aduna. I don't have any affiliation with them, but they do a good quality product. This is a good quality cinnamon. I'm just putting half a teaspoon in. I am going to add a tiny bit of sweetener, but generally for myself, I don't actually, you know what? I'm not going to add it because I don't actually have a sweetener in it myself. But if you do want to have one, you can do. The other thing that you can do to make this slightly more luxurious is add a bit of collagen to this. So you can use a vegan collagen, a bovine, a fish collagen, as long as it's unflavored. And it just gives an extra source of some of those amino acids and that fatty sort of texture that you want as well. The good thing about high quality cacao products is that they do contain all 9 essential amino acids. So this actually is not just a source of those flavonols and polyphenols, but also a source of amino acids. In addition, there are some potential prebiotic effects of having chocolate in your diet as well. So there are some fibers that your gut microbes absolutely love to munch on. And I've just got a little bit of water in this at 80 degrees centigrade. I tend to make teas with either water off the boil that I've let just cool down a little bit, because you don't want to burn your teas, as we're going to talk about a little bit earlier. But I do the same thing with cacao as well, because I don't want to essentially scorch any of the polyphenols. And there is some evidence for different types of products here that the lower temperature brewing methods preserve a lot of those health benefits as well. If you wanted to, you can add a little bit of coconut milk. This is just simply warmed coconut milk, but you can use cold as well. And that is it, just a little dab of that. And this, you know, sometimes I make it without any milk whatsoever, but this is a nice little drink, which is high polyphenols. And you've also got the extra cinnamon, which we've already talked about in a previous episode with regards to the anti-inflammatory benefits as well. So you're getting a double whammy. So that sweetness of the cinnamon comes through. It is a very bitter flavor. And if you did want to add some sort of sweetener. You can add maple syrup or just a dash of date nectar as well, just to make it slightly more palatable if you're not used to having dark drinks. Like I have quite a bitter coffee that I absolutely love. I'm a black coffee drinker. I always will be. But this, if you are a black coffee drinker, you'll be able to tolerate, because the bitter notes, the flavor, the complexity, it has an overwhelming chocolatey flavor, but not like a sweet, milky flavor. It's really, really good. So those are the things that you're going to be looking for. And this is, again, a very good high polyphenol drink to have in place of coffee, or something that you might want to have in the afternoons if you're trying to make sure that the caffeine doesn't affect the adenosine blocking action of caffeine, and can disrupt your sleep quality as well. So that's chocolate. Another drink that you can enjoy is beetroot. Now, you wouldn't think that you can have beetroot in a hot drink. You tend to think of beets either in a salad or roasted, or beet juice. That actually is a fantastic ingredient and fantastic drink, because it increases nitric oxide production in your body. It's a great source of nitrates, and even has performance effects, and also may even have effects on muscle repair and recovery. But you can also get beet powder. So this is 100% beet powder. You can buy these online. They have these natural pigments in called betalains. That's what gives the red flower. People used to think there are anthocyanins in beets, but it's actually the betalains, which is a different type of plant chemical. They have strong anti-inflammatory activities. Like I said, with nitrate, it does improve your vascular function. There are clear benefits with having beets in your diet, and 100% beet powder like this on heart health and also exercise performance as well. There's a diagram that I'm just popping up there on the screen for you that looks at beetroot and its effect on physical performance, the anti-inflammatory effects as well. It has a clear effect on vascular tone, which might explain the cardiovascular benefits. It reduces blood pressure, and there's also some interesting research looking at endothelial function as well. So that's the cells in the linings of your vessels, and improving the function of that can reduce the chances of things like heart attacks. The main mechanism that people look to when thinking about beetroot is the nitric oxide synthesis. So beets contain nitrates, and in your mouth and your digestive tract, those are broken down into nitric oxide. That increases the vasodilatory effect on your vessels, which reduces blood pressure and can improve cardiovascular health as well. I know I've just been talking about how good beetroot juice is, but actually there was some research that found that fresh, dried and pureed beetroot showed the highest total phenolic, antioxidant and total flavonoid capacity of all the different processing methods. So this powdered version might actually be better than juicing. It's also a lot more convenient. I would say you want to try and get variety as much as possible. So some raw cooked beetroot, some raw in fermented versions, let's say, and then some powdered as well. The benefits that we see with beetroot are around 400 to 500 milligrams of nitrate. And at the highest levels, a tablespoon of this beetroot powder can contain up to 150 to 200 milligrams of nitrate. So a couple of these drinks could have the nitrate levels that you need to see the benefits that we see in some of those clinical studies as well. I'm going to make a beetroot chai, and it sounds a bit weird, but chai is basically a tea, and we tend to use spiced, different sorts of spices in Indian versions of chai. You can see this powder. I mean, if you can get freeze-dried powder, that would be wonderful. But this is just like a low-temperature dried powder. You can buy it online. They're not that expensive. This is about 12 pounds, so 15 US, depending on what the conversion is at what time you're watching this. And it will last you a while. I mean, you're only using a tablespoon at a time, so similar in price to coffee and coffee beans, and some really interesting benefits as well. I'm going to add some nutmeg to this. I ideally want to add a pinch of freshly grated nutmeg, but I don't have my nutmeg grater on me. I'm also going to add a little bit of black pepper. Sounds weird, but that is actually what you find in chai as well. They do use some spices that are used in savory context as well. For this, I am going to add a little bit of syrup. So this is just some nectar, date nectar, but you can use maple syrup as well, or any sort of raw honey that would also work. You can use almond milk or cashew milk. Coconut would also work well. And again, I'm going to be using a relatively low temperature, something similar that you would use for things like green tea to not burn the tea leaves. And this hopefully should preserve a lot of the polyphenols that we find in beets. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of milk to this, so just some almond milk or coconut milk. And you can see it's created this wonderful sort of pink hue drink. You can tell why these are so popular on Instagram, because they are beautiful to look at. And it's got like a mild, earthy flavor, but with a nutmeg and a slight hint of black pepper and the sweetness that you got from the date nectar. It is a delicious, different version of a hot drink that you can have instead of coffee, packed full of those polyphenols. The nitrates are wonderful as well. Try this one out. This is really good, and invest in a good quality beetroot powder as well. The next one is a really traditional drink. You find this in lots of different countries, particularly in Egypt. When I was there recently, hibiscus tea was pretty much everywhere. Hibiscus is also known as roselle or sour tea. It is packed full of polyphenols. It comes from this annual bushy plant in the Malvaceae family that is grown in many African and Southeast Asian countries. Traditionally, it's used as a tea and also a traditional medicine as well. It's been documented to have some anti-inflammatory and anti-hypertensive properties, so improving blood pressure and potentially improving cardiovascular outcomes. This is a source of anthocyanins, which are found in berries. They give that typical red, purple, bluish hue to different ingredients like red onions, for example, specific types of berries like blueberries, black currants, etc. It does have a very sort of sour taste, which I quite like. Almost the tannins that you find in hibiscus are similar to the ones that you'd find in red wine. It's got that kind of dry after taste as well. Blood pressure effects are seen with about 1 gram a day, so probably not what you would see in just a single cup of hibiscus, but 3 to 4 cups a day might have those benefits on blood pressure as well. There might also be some benefits for cholesterol, certainly for inflammation, but it is less well documented in studies looking at humans. For this, I'm also going to be making sure that we don't do this at a particularly high temperature. So higher temperature, like I was saying with tea leaves, tend to lead to the degradation of things like anthocyanins. So research suggests that the ideal temperature is around 60 degrees centigrade, and for about 20 minutes are the best conditions for the extraction of the highest content of anthocyanins. So this little kettle that I've been using is a special, what's called a gooseneck kettle. This is by a brand called Fellow, not sponsored by them or anything. It's kind of expensive. You can find some sort of cheaper versions on Jeff Bezos's shop. But this allows you to determine the exact temperature of the water that you're looking for. And with that spout, it allows for an even distribution of the water if you're doing it. It's usually used for V60s with coffee, but this is particularly useful when you're trying to get the right temperature so that you don't burn leaves like hibiscus or green tea, like I've suggested. You want to make sure that you're not getting higher than 80 degrees centigrade, and certainly nowhere near boiling, because it can degrade the anthocyanins. And as you've invested so much in a good quality dried hibiscus leaf, you want to make sure that you're not overtly going to be burning it. And if you don't have one of those, fancy kettles, then just leave it off the boil for at least 10 minutes. It will go down probably to less than 80 degrees centigrade in that respect as well. So the recipe that I've got up here is dried hibiscus leaves, a couple of cloves. So cloves are one of my favorite ingredients. We've done a whole episode on cloves and whether you should be chewing cloves every single day. That is quite a common practice, certainly in India, where I've always been told that chewing on a clove every single day is good for longevity, digestive health, oral health. It does contain cinnamonic acid, so similar to what you find in cinnamon. Eugenol as well, which is a powerful antioxidant. And so powerful, in fact, it's one of the highest, if not the highest, on the antioxidant score called ORAC, clovers. And this pairing is fantastic because you've got the anti-inflammatory benefits of the clove, the anti-inflammatory action of the hibiscus, and it gives a sort of like lovely paired flavor as well. For this, you can use a little bit of raw honey if you like it sweet. You can also use a sprig of fresh mint. I don't have any fresh mint today, so I'm just gonna go with just the clove and hibiscus. And it shows the versatility of these recipes as well, because you don't need to have exactly everything in terms of all the ingredients. It can still work if you've got the core ones. So clove and hibiscus, this is a great pairing. And if you look at this diagram that I've got up here, it shows the degradation kinetics of anthocyanin. So in the presence of different types of polyphenols and at different temperatures, you can see just how much of the anthocyanins you're going to be protecting. Interesting if you're into the geekiness of how much you can extract from your hibiscus tea. But the main thing is to ensure that it steeps for a good amount of time so you can actually enjoy some of those flavors that you get out of both the clove and the hibiscus. So I would leave this to steep for at least 2 to 3 minutes or so, and then enjoy it. And you'll see the flavor, the colors of this really, really intensify. I tend to do, I mean, if you're short on time and you don't want to wait 20 minutes, at least 4 minutes should be enough to get the majority of the anthocyanins that you want out of this, and the flavors most importantly. And when you drink it and when you want to stop the stewing, you need to strain it out as well. I just like get a teaspoon and just chuck it out. But as I'm not going to make you watch me for 20 minutes, I'm just going to show you, describe to you what the flavor's like.
Just a quick one. If you're enjoying this kind of content, you will love our free newsletter called Seasonal Sundays. It goes into depth on a seasonal ingredient every Sunday, and we talk about the nutritional medicine benefits, the research, and the culinary uses of an ingredient every Sunday with recipes included. You can get access to the free newsletter in the link just down below.
So it needs to steep a little bit longer to get more of the clove flavor in particular, because I haven't bashed the clove, but that is one thing that you could do just to maximize the amount of material that you're going to be getting from the clove itself. The hibiscus is delicious. It is sour. It's got those tannins. It's got that dry mouth feel. It doesn't sound like I'm giving it much of a plug here, but if you think about having English breakfast tea or a Darjeeling tea, black, i.e. you don't have to put any milk in it, it would have the similar sort of mouthfeel, similar sort of flavor. So that's definitely something that I would compare it to. And if you like that flavor with a little bit of like rosy sort of sour tone, tart cherry, this is definitely something that you'd enjoy. And you can really tell as I've been talking, the intensity of the color has changed completely. It looks like, more like a light red, and it will become more and more full-bodied the more you let it steep. And the flavor is, it's intense. It's getting even more of those flavors, even more of those anthocyanins. A wonderful anti-inflammatory drink. Definitely give this one a try if you want to mix up your coffee habit. Next one, maca. Maca is a really interesting ingredient because as I was doing research for this, I found out that it is actually a brassica family member. So same family as rocket and broccoli and certain types of turnips as well. I didn't think that was going to be a thing. I mean, it looks so different to the brassica family members that we know of. Even cabbage. I mean, I guess cabbage and cauliflower are beige themselves, or white cabbages anyway. But yeah, it's unusual. It definitely has some of the bitterness that you recognize when you eat brassica family vegetables. Therefore, it is also a source of glucosinolates. So glucosinolates are these wonderful anti-inflammatory compounds that are broken down into different compounds metabolized into other bioactives by your gut microbes, and they have powerful effects on reducing inflammation and reducing oxidation. Consumption of brassica vegetables every day has been shown to have anti-cancer benefits and also benefits to reduce risk of a whole host of different lifestyle-related illnesses. This is a wonderful ingredient to make sure you're getting in more traditional medical uses for maca that stem from the Mayan region, Peru and other areas like that. They used it for energy, fertility, hormonal imbalances, and menopause. Now, I can't find much research in the modern scientific literature to essentially prove some of those uses. But when you look at the nutritional breakdown of maca, it is pretty wonderful. It's high in magnesium, it's high in zinc. You've got prebiotic effects. You've got those extra polyphenols as well that are anti-inflammatory. It's no wonder that it's probably been prized as a medicinal plant for so many years in traditional medical systems, but the evidence is kind of lacking when it comes to some of the claims that you might hear. There is a little bit of evidence for fertility. So there's a pilot study that looked at sperm concentration and motility, and it showed a rising trend with milled maca root of around 1.75 grams per day, so not too much. There was also another pilot study that showed improved self-reported symptoms of depression in postmenopausal women. There's lots of issues with that, self-reported. It was looking specifically at postmenopausal women. There might have been some other things going on other than maca, who knows, but it is a safe product and it's been used for thousands of years. And it tastes very nice. It's actually got a sweet taste to it instead of the sort of more bitter brassica vegetables, but it does need some combinations with other ingredients. So there are different varieties of maca as well. You can get red maca, purple maca. They probably have different collections of polyphenols, most likely anthocyanin. But you know, sometimes that can just represent the placebo effect that you see these in studies as well. So the recipe that I've got is for coconut cardamom maca. It's a hot drink. So again, we're going to be using our lovely tea kettle here. I'm going to use about a teaspoon of maca. Let's put this together. And that goes. We're going to use some cardamom. So cardamom and maca, I think, is a wonderful combination. Ooh. Get my doctor's kitchen pestle and mortar out. Okay, so cardamom, we're using fresh cardamom because I'm Indian and we always use fresh cardamom, none of the powdered cardamom stuff, unless you need to use loads and loads and like baking or whatever. I'm just going to give those a light bash and add that to our maca drink. This, because of the maca having some slight bitterness or a slightly more bitterness than the hibiscus that we are using and the beetroot, I am going to add a tiny bit of our sweetener of choice. You can use honey. I'm using just a little bit of date nectar. Remember, sugar is sugar, so I'm using the sugar that I prefer the taste of. That's more earthy and flavorful. There's nothing more healthy than compared with just regular sugar, whether it's coconut or whether it's a date. Actually, this recipe has coconut sugar in it, and I've just used date nectar, but that's fine. You can use date nectar, you can use coconut sugar, totally fine. The same biological effect when it comes to the health effects in your body as well. I'm going to use a little bit of hot water just to get everything moving around. And maca will clump together, unfortunately. So if you've got one of these electric whisks, it is a good little investment to have if you like your whisk drinks and all the rest of it. But it just takes a little bit of getting used to. Similar to matcha. So if you have a matcha bamboo whisk, this would come in really handy for maca-based drinks because they tend to clump if you don't use the fine sort of bamboo whisk just to break up some of the molecules here. But the other interesting thing about maca is it does have a lot of prebiotic benefits, so good gut health benefits as well. Probably because of those brassica elements too. You can see this is sort of turning into a bit of a sort of a thick, viscous, almost like honey-like substance, which is exactly what we want because all the powder has been absorbed. a little bit more of the hot water. That again is not at a high temperature, that's about 75 degrees centigrade. And I'm just going to add my milk of choice, which could be coconut, could be cashew, could be regular dairy, full fat dairy. I always go for full fat dairy, in my opinion. And this almost looks similar to the chai, like a typical Indian chai. Wow, that is really good. This is one of my favorites. This is phenomenal. That bitterness, just because I used a tiny bit of sugar, completely gone away. It is milky, it is creamy. The cardamom and maca combination is wonderful. This is really, really good. I do love this one. And you can just use this, if you don't want to use milk, you just use the water and like a creamer. Again, you could add a bit of collagen to this to increase the protein content if that's what you want as a morning drink, which I think protein in the morning is a good thing, but that is really good. This is a really, really good drink. Definitely give that one a try. You wouldn't think that there's a brassica vegetable in that. You know, people who are scared of brassica vegetables because of the bitterness, you know, give them that. They will quickly change their mind. The last one is mountain tea. This is also called Sideritis scardia or ironwort, and it's a shrub which kind of resembles the stems of wheat at first glance, but you smell it and it's kind of like chamomile meets a bit of sage. It's got that real sort of herbaceous scent to it. It grows on rocky ground, so you can imagine like this having to be a very hardy plant to withstand the wind and the beating sun and all the sort of extreme changes of temperature. So this is going to be packed full of polyphenols, because if you think about polyphenols, these are increased in the plant when that plant is stressed. And so a sort of lazy plant or a fat plant or whatever you want to call it is going to have less of those bitter notes, less of the flavors, less of the defense chemicals that actually convert their benefits to us. They confer, their benefits to us. So a hardy plant like this that's growing at altitude is going to have the benefits that you want. It's named after the mountain in which it's distributed, Greek mountain tea or Olympus tea, as in Greek, in Greece. You wouldn't call mountain tea in Greece, you'd call it Olympus tea. And it's traditionally used in medicine in Eastern Europe to treat a whole plethora of different problems, common colds, coughs, gut problems as well. It is a strong anti-inflammatory, but there is limited evidence for some of the health claims around it. There are some small funded trials that found improved cognitive performance and reduced anxiety. This is for 950 milligrams of mountain tea. The phenolic acids are kind of similar in a way to coffee. There's ferulic acid, chlorogenic acid. You also find these in different types of black teas as well. There's also flavones like apigenin. And apigenin is interesting because you also find apigenin, which is a strong anti-inflammatory, in parsley and other sort of plants in that sort of genre. And then there are also strong anti-inflammatory effects, like I said, antioxidant, and they're potentially gastroprotective activities as well. So really, really interesting product. And it is delicious. I'm going to show you. So this, again, you'd want to make sure that you're not doing it at a high temperature. Definitely use the stems. I'm just breaking it because it's hard to all fit into this little stubby glass I've got here. Add some of these shrubby bits here. I'm not going to use everything just because it will bloom when you add some water to it. The water is at 75 degrees centigrade using my cool kettle, and I'm also going to add some rose petals. So rose, the petals, though, obviously going to give a sweet floral note. And this I've experimented with. It pairs so nice with this because I've also used rose with chamomile tea just to sort of give, again, like a natural sweet tone to it. I'm not going to add any sugar to this one. You can do, it's optional if you want to use raw honey, like a Greek honey would be fantastic with this. But I prefer to, you know, think of the natural sweetness in the rose petals themselves. Again, you want to leave this to steep for a few minutes at least. and make sure that if you don't have one of these funky gooseneck kettles, that you are taking it off the boil, the water off the boil, and leaving it to sit for 5 to 10 minutes at least before digging in to this one. So allow it to steep, and you'll see that it goes a yellow greenish kind of hue. And the flavor, honestly, is phenomenal. You might be thinking about where to buy mountain tea. If you're in the States, you can buy this from a number of different exporters from Greece. You'll find it online in specialty stores. They come in these cool packets like this one here. So this is, again, I'm not affiliated with this company at all. The Furies, they also do a very good extra virgin olive oil. I should be affiliated with this company. And it comes in this sort of pack. You can find them blended into a powder and then like put into a little glass container. But this is, this is the real stuff. It's just dried, packed, and then sent over, and then exactly what like you'd want from a good quality product as well. And I can already smell the sort of all this different complex polyphenols, the chemicals. There are some similarities between this rosemary and sage as well, and those have been prized for their cognitive benefits. And people in Greece who are swayed by the traditional medicines of their ancestors are really excited, and they swear by this kind of stuff. One of the secrets of the Mediterranean could be in the teas and the polyphenols that they consume. And that's something that's mirrored across other cultures as well, whether it's Asia, India, Native Americans, and South Americans as well. So let's give this a try. The rose kind of comes through, chamomile type flavor, herbaceous, but not like in a sort of savory way. That's really lovely. Really, really nice. I would add a little bit of sweetener to this if you want some sweetness, and it doesn't have to be date nectar. It could just be like a raw honey. But this is fab. This is a nice like evening drink. Could help with sleep in the same way chamomile does. It's nice and calming, soothing. It's got a lovely sort of floral note to it with a rose. Yeah, I really do like that. So these are just some of the anti-inflammatory teas and hot drinks that aren't coffee. And I'm a big fan of coffee, but if you want a difference, you want something slightly different, try some of these and experiment with different flavors. I've got hibiscus tea here, beetroot, mountain tea, maca, and of course, one of my favorites, which was, what was the first thing I did? Cacao, that's it. Cacao, the reason why I forgot about it is because it's empty. I used all of it. But yeah, these are the 5 drinks that you should be thinking about getting into your diet for those anti-inflammatory benefits, those extra polyphenols, and those potential health benefits as well that they represent.
If you love that episode, you'll love this one where I do a deep dive into honey and the benefits of honey, what to look for in good quality honey, and whether honey is actually worth the money.